All right, guys, welcome to Run It Back. Max is out of town, so David, of course, David knows a thing or two, right, about this whole business and Spurs talk.
Or two.
Yeah, we're going to get into some interesting Spurs talk here. Of course, if you watch the podcast, thank you very much. If you listen to it, we appreciate that as well. We're going to have this on all the different platforms. And let's get right to it, David, because this is an interesting time right now for all of Spurs Nation. Kawhi Leonard has made some headlines recently, and the interesting part about this is that Uncle Dennis has spoken, and all it took was Kawhi to make it to the NBA Finals, and then finally we hear from Uncle Dennis. Your thoughts?
Yeah, you're Kawhi, but has gotten some attention lately. But I think Uncle Dennis is the one getting most of the attention. Mm-hmm. Kawhi's just out there playing basketball and pretty much staying low key like normally Kawhi does.
Right.
But it's Uncle Dennis who stirred the pot, and it's like, Uncle Dennis, what are you doing?
Yeah.
This was a year. All this stuff, it was a year ago. Can't you just let this lie and let people do what they do over the summer and either watch the Warriors and the Toronto Raptors or not watch them, root against Kawhi or not root? Mm-hmm. You know, whatever. Why you got to bring this up now?
Yeah. I think because they're on the mountaintop right now, and I think because they feel like it's vindication for them. They feel like they were slandered by the Spurs. They feel like they were slandered by the media when all this was going on with Kawhi Leonard. So I feel like him coming out is kind of saying one of these like, hey, we sort of got the last laugh here, and look at our guy Kawhi. He's now led Toronto to the finals, and Spurs, you should have listened to us. Spurs, you should have just adhered to everything we were saying. And this is sort of like their kind of we're up here sort of moment. You guys are all the way down there right now.
But see, that part of the problem is the phrasing that you're using, which is true. It's what is how they look at it. It's we.
Right.
Uncle Dennis hadn't put on a Spurs uniform, as far as I know.
Yeah.
He hadn't put on a Toronto uniform, as far as I know. He's just causing problems by opening up this can of worms now. I mean, I thought it was all settled. Kawhi was gone. Kawhi was in Toronto, big trade. And all of a sudden, Kawhi makes it to the finals. Like, oh, hey, look, San Antonio, we're going to the NBA Finals.
Yeah, and I felt it definitely was a slight towards the Spurs organization and what happened last season.
Because what does he bring up? He brings up the word trust.
Yeah.
And he talks about how they lost trust in the Spurs. They couldn't be with the Spurs anymore because of the doctors and because the Spurs didn't believe him when he said he was still hurt after he was cleared to play by two sets of doctors. Even his own set of doctors cleared him to play.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Well, they seeked out multiple opinions. Yeah. That was sort of the deal. They were looking for a doctor that basically was going to kind of agree with what they wanted to do, which I think, bottom line is I think they wanted to leave San Antonio, and they just figured out this is the way we have to do it, and this is the way to kind of go about it, which that part, I've always been like, okay, Kawhi could have left no matter what. He can do whatever he wants to do. But the way they went about it, basically submarining that entire, is that a word, submarining? Submarining that entire season, last season, and causing all this friction with the medical staff, with the coaching staff, and with the team. I think that was definitely the wrong way to go about it, and Kawhi just basically going AWOL on the Spurs was definitely just not the best way to do things.
You're hearing a lot of chatter out there about his injury and about how they acted with his injury and how Kawhi and his team acted and how the Spurs team. I mean, I got to the point where I didn't care about the injury anymore.
Yeah.
Everybody gets hurt, and I don't know if he was hurt, if he didn't just want to play, or if he was really hurt, or believe. The thing that bothered me the most, and I've said it before, is just the way he acted, the lack of respect. This is a guy that wouldn't take a phone call from David Robinson.
Yeah.
You can't just pick up the phone and say, Dave, what's up?
Yeah.
You can't even talk to an owner, former Spurs superstar, an MVP, Hall of Famer. You can't take a phone call from him, and that's what the story was. So if you're going to believe a lot of stuff out there, then you got to believe this too. You got to believe that he turned down a phone call from David Robinson, and I get the thing that Tony Parker came out and said, well, I was injured and I had the same injury, and I came back and here I am, and are you that thin-skinned that you let one of your teammates get to you that much if you're going to let that affect you?
Yeah, to me it was just another reason for him to get out. And once Tony said that, which I think we've all, we all know Tony, he speaks his mind a little bit, but we know there was no sort of disingenuous thing with Tony when he said it. It was just a normal comment.
That was the frustration, though, because nobody knew if Kawhi was coming back.
Yeah.
Nobody knew what Kawhi was going to do. And for a while, it was like, well, he's coming back. We just don't know when.
Yeah.
He's coming back. So your team is like, okay, we're going to get him back. We're going to get him back by the end of the season. We're going to get him back for the playoffs. And all of a sudden, not only does he not come back for the playoffs, he didn't even show up and support his team.
Yeah.
That's what irritated me more than anything about this whole story. And I may be standing alone because everybody wants to talk about his injury and all that. That's what irritated me more about anything, is the fact that he disrespected David Robinson and former players and people that wanted to talk to him. And to me, he disrespected his team by not even showing up. These are the guys you go to battle with every day. You forget the coaches, forget the general managers, forget the doctors. These are the guys you battle with day in and day out there on the court, and you don't even show up. Maybe there was one that upset you, but what about the rest of the guys?
Yeah.
What about the Danny Greens? What about the Manu Ginóbili? What about those young guys sitting at the end of the bench trying to learn how to become a good NBA player? You disrespected all those guys. In my mind, I just felt like that's what he did when he didn't even show up.
Yeah, it's pretty bad when Manu Ginóbili has to sort of ask you, or Manu Ginóbili doesn't know where you're at. I mean, this is a Spurs icon, a Spurs legend. You mentioned David Robinson, but Manu, by all accounts, is one of the best teammates ever. No problem really with anyone. And for Manu to actually be like, well, we don't know what's going on with this guy, and I have no idea what's happening.
Not only was it players, but he disrespected the fans. All those people that had bought his jersey, and come out to support him. I just felt like it showed a lot of lack of respect. And I think that is not. I don't put it all on Kawhi. I put a lot of it on Kawhi, but I put a lot of it on the people that surrounded him as well.
Yeah.
We got to get out of here, so this is how we're going to do it. And I just felt like that's how that ended up coming out. And by the way, who was paying him when he wasn't showing up?
The Spurs.
Yeah.
Like you said, the fans.
What kind of deal is that?
So
you don't
obviously,
have to come to work and you still get a huge paycheck.
Yeah, I know, that's nice. Yeah. So obviously, look, we're getting the side from Uncle Robert's, Uncle Dennis, whatever, Dennis the Menace. So we're getting the side from him. We're probably never going to get the side from the Spurs. And I mean, just the way that they operate, Pop, RC, they're probably never, ever going to talk about it. Maybe 15 years down the road, we find out, story comes out or something. Yeah. Pop just feels one day.
Not as long as Pop and RC are where they are right now.
No. They would have to be long gone in order for anything to come out.
I mean, you can hear stuff maybe from people that, claim to be on the end. But
the national narrative has now been that what did the Spurs do that basically let Kawhi walk out of the building? Do you feel like the Spurs deserve any blame in what happened with Kawhi Leonard last season and where we see him now?
Maybe Pop didn't have to come out and say, well, you have to talk to his people.
Yeah.
And maybe Tony Parker shouldn't have come out and said, well, I got the same injury and here I am. I'm back. Maybe that, like I said, maybe he got sensitive to that. And but I tend to be where you were earlier. He wanted out of here, and he was just looking for excuses, and those just became convenient excuses. And I think that when Pop came out and said that, because, well, you're going to have to talk to his people, I think they knew then that this wasn't going to work out.
Right.
And he's coming back, and I think that was just frustration, and that was trying to get the guy's attention. And you're in Toronto now, so good luck to you. You're going to lose in 5.
Okay, we'll get to the series prediction here in a little bit. So, obviously, the Spurs, now that you look at this in sort of the bigger picture, Kawhi Leonard is in the NBA Finals. The Spurs out in the first round, really trying to figure out, where we're going to go in the future here. How much do you think that this will affect the Spurs in the next 2-3 years? Or do you feel like for the Spurs, they've moved on, they're already way past this, or do you think this is kind of difficult, them seeing Kawhi right now?
No, I don't think anybody's paying attention. Well, they're kind of watching, but I don't think they're really. I don't think they're really concerned because here's the way I look at it: is they are set up for long range future, whereas Toronto, if they lose Kawhi,
if they lose Kawhi, they're
what do they have?
In some serious trouble. Then
and what are the odds of him staying in Toronto? Does he have to win a championship to stay? Does it matter if he wins or loses? Does he even stay? The word always was he wanted to go to California. Yeah. He wanted to go to L.A., either the Clippers or the Lakers. Well, then he's going to go out there, so that'll be his third team in 2 years. So what does that do? Whereas the Spurs, they got a draft pick from trading him and getting DeMar and getting Jakob, and those two guys developed pretty well last year. They're going to be even better next year. They've got a whole year under Pop's system, and so they're going to be better. You got a backcourt. You got 5 guys in the backcourt You got a loaded backcourt that's going to be absolutely fantastic with Derek White and DeJounte and Brent Forbes and
Lonnie Walker. We haven't seen Lonnie Walker.
And then Patty Mills.
Yeah.
I mean, come on, really?
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
I think the Spurs have set themselves up for long term. Plus, you got the two draft picks in the first round. Last time they had that, if I remember correctly, 87, David Robinson and Cadillac Anderson.
There you go, Cadillac Anderson. Wow, Cadillac Anderson makes the podcast.
I mean, you have a lot of options if you want to make some trades.
Yeah.
You've got these 2 first-round draft picks.
Yeah.
I don't know that they're going to draft somebody in Europe that we've never heard of and leave them over there for a while. They might do that.
It wouldn't shock me. Yeah, they did that.
That's a habit they got into. But, I mean, you look at what they have and what their future looks like. And, they're going to miss Kawhi. Sure, he's one of the top 2 or 3 players in the league.
Yeah.
He's not the best player right now in the league. He's limping around on the floor.
Right.
He's still going to lose in 5. But he's still one of the best players in the league. So but I think long-term, I think the Spurs are going to come out ahead.
Yeah. It'll be interesting because, like you said, Toronto basically took this gamble thinking, well, we know we're going to have him for a year, but not knowing the long-term future of what that's going to mean for that franchise. And it just so happened that they made the finals this year, so that'll be an interesting thing to see over the summer. But I think the Spurs are in good shape moving ahead. As much as this hurts right now, and because, again, Kawhi right now is sort of in the national spotlight, and there's a lot of people questioning, well, the Spurs must have done something terribly wrong for Kawhi to leave. Yeah.
So this is a year ago. This happened a year ago.
I know, but I think we go to the games. I think people here in San Antonio, especially kind of the local media, they know that the Spurs did the most that they possibly could to keep Kawhi Leonard here. I mean, they basically kind of bent over backwards for him. I mean, to allow the guy to, like you said, seek 3rd, 4th, 5th opinions. I know we're kind of backtracking a little bit, but to, like you said, basically miss an entire season and then pop flies to Southern California over the summer to ask Kawhi, hey, how can we make this work? Let's try and move ahead. And then that's basically when they sort of said, okay, this is not going to be able to, they're not going to be able to come back.
And why do you want to keep a guy who doesn't want to be here?
Yeah, that's true.
Why do you want him here?
Yeah, that's true.
You don't want to deal with that.
So. So the other side, the other side of the coin, you mentioned DeMar DeRozan. I feel kind of bad for DeMar right now. What do you think is going through DeMar's mind at this very moment?
I gave all that time to Toronto, and now they're going to the finals, and I'm not even on the team anymore.
Yeah, that hurts.
But could they have gotten to the finals with DeMar and Jakob, or did it take Kawhi to get Toronto to the finals?
Well, I think it was a combination of a few things. I think obviously Kawhi playing the way he is now, like you said, top 2-3 player. And also, let's not forget that LeBron left the East. I mean, so LeBron is now in the West because the big hurdle for Toronto all these years. Would that have made a difference for DeMar if LeBron had gone to the Lakers and DeMar and Jakob were still in Toronto? Would they be in the NBA Finals? Well, I think just because what we saw out of Milwaukee this year, I think that Milwaukee would have beaten them in a series. I think what happened was that you had Kawhi defend Giannis, and after Game 2 of that series, they specifically put Kawhi to kind of focus a little bit more on Giannis, and he also put in on the offensive side as well.
6 bounces. That's what it was.
Wow, the game 7 bounces. Shot against Philly.
Well, the game 7 shot with 4 bounces on the rim.
Yeah, and
then the game 6 shot where he shot that 3, bounced off the rim, went up off the backboard, and came back through. Mm-hmm. And that reminded you of that shot. So 6 bounces, and they're in the finals.
Yeah, we're going to talk about an interesting shot coming up here in a little bit. So DeMar DeRozan, big kind of question coming up with him is that the Spurs on July 6th, they could extend him. They could give him a 4-year deal worth $149 million. What do you think the Spurs are thinking right now with DeMar as far as the future? He's going to be 31 by the time that this extension would kick in.
But if age and the Spurs, that doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. I mean, they've learned how to keep players around for a while by watching their minutes and watching their health. Yeah. That's another thing about the Kawhi thing. Yeah. Who in the world would think that the Spurs would send a player out there who wasn't ready to go out after an injury?
I mean, you know what?
Sorry, I didn't mean to bring the Kawhi thing up again, but I mean, seriously, you think Pop's going to send a player?
That's ridiculous.
How many times did Pop make a guy sit another 2 or 3 games just to make sure he was healthy. Yeah. So that
Tim Duncan missed an entire playoffs because they worried about his long-term health. Yeah.
But anyway, back to DeMar. You've just invested a whole year in this guy. Mm-hmm. You've made him one of your top players. His defense has improved something unbelievable. I mean, he's a whole lot better defensive player now than he was ever with Toronto, in my opinion. So I think you got to keep him. I think you got to keep him around. 31, like I said, age doesn't really matter with this team.
Yeah, I think this is going to be an interesting season for DeMar because we all want to see if he could work on his outside shooting a little bit more. And maybe when he gets with Chip England, that'll be kind of a good things ahead for him.
He's got to be able to hit it.
DeMar played, DeMar, for the situation that he was put in to be with a team that didn't have a point guard, he really played well this past season. So I think DeMar is a guy that takes care of himself. So like you said, age I don't think is that big of a factor. There's numbers here when you look at he's going to be 32, maybe he'd get $36 million a year. So this will be interesting to see what the Spurs decide to do. But a key date there would be July 6th.
And you got to figure LaMarcus has already gotten all his.
LaMarcus got his, yeah.
So he's not going to. I mean,
LaMarcus is already kind of on
the
back nine of his career.
So
a little bit.
if DeMar's your guy, then you're going to have some money for DeMar.
Yeah.
And if DeMar will work on the 3-point shot, his defense, like I said, defense is much better. He's got to learn how to hit a three. I mean, he's got to be consistent from 3-point range because that's where the game is. And I was kind of with Pop watching some of this. It's like, how many times are you going to run down the floor and fire up a three? And then nobody even rebounds anymore. It's like,
oh, yes.
When you were in 8th grade playing ball and you had a coach, what did he tell you? After you take a shot, what did he tell you?
Go after the ball.
Follow your shot.
Follow the shot.
Nobody follows their shot anymore. So Kawhi did on that one missed free throw.
Yeah.
But it's like, you got anyway.
Yeah. All right. So we're going to move on here to better days when it comes to Spurs and their history. This week marks 20 years since the Sean Elliott Memorial Day miracle. An unbelievable shot, David. You were there. What was your immediate thought when that shot went in? Crowds going nuts. And just being in the Alamo Dome for that game.
Unbelievable. Couldn't believe he wasn't out of bounds.
Yeah.
Like he was in bounds when he shot that.
Yeah.
And it was a three.
Yeah.
That was even more amazing as he didn't see it. He just fired it up.
Yeah.
And, as big and spacious as that Alamo Dome was, that was pretty loud.
Yeah.
I mean, they were getting 36 to 40,000 people in there for those playoff games. That was pretty loud. That was a great moment.
Yeah, and incredible. We just actually saw the replay of that. The Spurs were down by double figures headed into the second half of that game. Game 2 of the 99 Western Conference Finals against a pretty solid Portland team. I think it was a Portland team that was feeling pretty good at that moment, being up in double figures. Spurs going a crazy run and capped with Sean Elliott's shot. I think if I wasn't here covering the team or anything like that, but I think for Spurs fans, did you feel like that was a moment when they truly believed that a championship was really in their sights?
Well, and the thing about it is Sean was already on a hot streak. I mean, he had already hit
I think he made like
threes,
6 or 7 threes.
5, he already hit several. Yeah. So, I mean, he was feeling it, and I'll guarantee if you ask him today, he'll tell you that he didn't even have to see the basket, and the shot was going in, and he knew it was going in. But he was just in that groove at that time of the game. And
was that play called for him? Was the play called for him?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I think he just ended up with they couldn't get in, and he just ended up with it.
Because Mario Ellie was also on the floor. They got Tim,
Mario
David.
Ellie inbounded.
Oh, Mario Ellie inbounded. Okay.
I think
he did. Yeah. I think we need to. Yeah, we can check that. Okay. Yeah. I'm wondering if the play was called for him because, like you said, he was hot throughout that entire game.
I don't think it might have been.
Well,
I'll have to ask him. One of these days, I'll have to ask the next question.
We'll talk to Sean about that.
I'll get you the next question.
Yeah, there you go. So, was that shot, the Memorial Day miracle, Sean Elliott shot, the biggest shot in Spurs history?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
Okay, so now here's the debate, and Sean will love me for this one. At that time, yes.
Yeah.
But was it still the biggest in playoff history after Avery Johnson hit that baseline jumper to beat the Knicks and win the first NBA championship for the Spurs? So which one was bigger?
Ooh,
here's what we were talking about. I'll throw this out at you, then I'll let you answer it. That was just game 2.
Right.
So they had already won game 1, so they were already up 1-0 on Portland. So that was just game 2. So there was still plenty of time if they had lost that game to come back, and they ended up sweeping them. So is that the biggest shot?
Well, I'm going to say yes, just because if I look back at a lot of sort of the Spurs history, I think that was the shot that really kind of led people to believe that the championship, that it was really the Spurs year. And I think, as you said, I mean, game 2, not a game 7, not a game 6, but at the same time, I think that ended Portland's chances. I think Portland, after they lose that game, crushed. Spurs go to Portland, take care of business on the road there. the Spurs were playing the Knicks in the finals. I think the Spurs were still going to be heavy favorites. I think the Spurs were up 3-1, right? Because they ended up winning the series 4-1. 3-1 when Avery hits the shot. Obviously a huge shot. I mean, a huge shot in Spurs history, but I just think that the momentum from Sean Elliott's Memorial Day miracle was really kind of the difference, and kind of just made it the Spurs year. I wasn't here at the time, but I gotta believe that from fans that, because I always hear about the Memorial Day miracle shot. I don't hear as much about Avery Johnson's shot. No.
Well, and also you have to remember that he was going through all those health problems.
Yeah.
And after that shot, after they won the championship, he went in and had the kidney transplant with his brother Noel. So, I mean, that makes.
And I don't think people knew, right, that he was going to have the transplant.
No.
Yeah,
they
it was
know,
not
but he
public.
was his health was being affected through that whole thing, and so that knowing now what we didn't know then, that makes it even that much more of a special shot, because the guy was having health problems. He was, and he was in that position to get them to Portland and pretty much wipe them out right there.
Yeah.
So I would have to say that's the biggest shot.
Pretty incredible. Definitely. I mean, because that did win. I mean, they ultimately won the championship that night. But I mean, the Memorial Day miracle, I saw it all over social media this past week. You did a thing for instant replay also. So I think, pretty big shot of, to me, the biggest all-time in Spurs history. Okay, so we are going to take a quick break. We will be right back on Run It Back. Thank you very much for listening to us, David Sears, RJ Marcus, and we'll come back. We're going to talk a little bit about Art Briles. So this is going to be kind of interesting. No, completely off topic, but we're going to get into Art Briles here in a bit. All right, guys, welcome back to Run It Back podcast. We have a special guest with us here. She just walked in to ask David Sears a question, Priscilla Kerman. She is you're San Antonio native, right?
I am,
okay.
Yes.
So before we went to break, we were talking about the 99 season, the Spurs' first championship season, such a great time in the city of San Antonio. So we wanted to ask you, as a San Antonio native, what do you remember about that season? What do you remember about that championship?
Specifically, the big thing that I remember is, once the game was all said and done, my family put us all into the back of a truck and we went downtown, and everybody just went crazy.
Yeah.
It was such a big celebration. That was the first time that I realized just how much the Spurs mean to the city.
Yeah.
Everybody was down there.
How old were you then? Do you remember?
I was 10 years old.
I'm not supposed to ask you this,
I was
but
10.
You were 10.
Yeah.
Okay, so at 10 years old, you're downtown celebrating with all these people. How late did you get to stay up that night?
Oh, I'm pretty sure it was very late. Yeah. Because not only when you go down there, I mean, it's crammed, so you have to wait to get out as well.
Were they doing the honking at the time? Honking, just people waving
flags,
just
jerseys.
Complete madness downtown.
Complete madness.
Yeah, and you were in the back of a truck, so they just loaded you guys up and said, "We're going on Commerce, and we're going to be doing some honking."
Yeah, and I was like, "Okay."
You just went yelling and screaming?
I'm pretty sure. I was probably freaking out a little bit too, but it was exciting.
But see, that was the typical Spur fan right there. They went downtown, they honked, they screamed, didn't burn down any cars, and didn't burn down any buildings. It was just a cool night to be downtown. We broadcast till like 3 a.m. And kept taking shots downtown. You might have been on TV.
Maybe, I don't know.
We need to go back to the archives.
A little 10-year-old.
But that was a fun time, wasn't it?
That was fun, yeah.
Can you believe it's been 20 years since that? I mean, it's such a vivid memory for you, also for your family too. Were your parents or your family, were they all big Spurs fans? Were they just going crazy?
They are the biggest Spurs fans. My uncle has a cowbell that they ring every game. They watch it on like the projector, and it's a whole shebang in my family. So yes, they were going crazy.
So for every championship after that, did you guys kind of do the same thing, or was it just that this was the first one and it was so memorable and that was kind of your most fond memory about Spurs championships?
I know that my family does the same thing. They have done the same thing. However, I was a little older the next few times, so I wasn't in the back of a truck. But yes, they still celebrate. And like you said, it's all fun here. Like, you never really see anything crazy going on. Nobody's fighting with each other. I mean, don't jinx anything, but
and one other question: at 10, did you watch the game, or did you just like joining the crowd?
So
were you sitting on the couch?
I had a bunch of cousins, and we would just be running around my grandparents' house. So
So somebody just told you that
they
they
said
won.
they won, and we were
get
like,
in the back of the truck.
yeah.
Get your Spurs stuff on. We're going downtown.
We're going downtown. See, when I was broadcasting.
Yeah. Well,
the party, and she was in the back of the truck at 10. So.
And just to be correct, we're going honking. That's what
Honking?
it's called here.
We're going honking. We're going honking.
We're going honking.
Okay.
Spell that for me.
Honking. Okay. Well, thank you very much, Priscilla. We know we kind of caught you off guard.
That's
you just
good
came
stuff.
in. Yeah.
See?
Yeah.
10 years old, remembers all that. How many times did you go up and down the street? You remember?
I don't remember.
What was it? What stands out in your mind that whole night? What's the main thing that stands out in your head?
Probably, so since I was in the back of the truck, it was the first time that they really had those clip-on flags to the
on the windows. Like on the cars. Yeah.
And so driving down there, it was just like. That's what I remember. The flag was just like flapping really hard.
Yeah. Crazy.
That's pretty good. Yeah.
Cool.
Good memories.
Very cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah. All right. Awesome. Well, thank you very much, Priscilla, for being with us on Run It Back. We'll be right back because someone else who was broadcasting, who was part of all this action, Mario Orellana, executive producer extraordinaire, is going to talk to us about his thoughts on the '99 Spurs NBA championship. All right, guys, continuing Run It Back. We're doing a lot of breaks here, but we're getting into some good stuff here with the '99 Spurs NBA championship. And here we have Mario Orellana. Yeah, Mario has been at KSAT for a little while. Yeah,
for about 25 years.
For about 25 years. Yeah. So he was in the building. The Spurs, when the Spurs won Game 5 in New York. Mario, what was going through your mind? What were some of your first thoughts?
First of all, as a lifelong Spurs fan, I always kind of thought, I just want one championship, because I go way back. I remember the '80s, and I remember I was at that '95 Spurs series with Hakeem Olajuwon, where that was as close and as excited as we had ever got, because we won 2 playoff series. And when I say we, I'm talking about the Spurs as if I were a part of it. But you kind of, after that series and Rodman left and everybody, you kind of thought, this may never happen. Yeah. And you start to question David, and you start to question, not this David Robinson, and you start to question the players that they have. And then when it came together in that '99 season, because if you remember, they had that terrible rodeo road trip. Or they started out terrible, and then
6 and 8. Those are the way they started.
And then a rodeo road trip, and it just became this, where, hey, they might win it. Yeah. And then it just kind of culminated with the Memorial Day miracle, because the Spurs before that, they missed that shot. Yeah. They do. And you're just something you're used to. You're used to Rod Strickland throwing the ball behind his back. You're used to Hakeem Olajuwon going that way and David going that way. The spin,
But it actually, I think more so for a lot of Spurs fans, a lot of people have been around. It actually started when they got Tim Duncan in the draft.
Yes,
I think that's when because you were talking about belief, that shot. But I think people started getting, because when you had, that was the Spurs version of the Twin Towers.
Yes.
Yeah. Because you were talking about Hakeem Olajuwon, and it was Hakeem Olajuwon at one time way back when, Ralph Sampson and Hakeem Olajuwon, the Towers. Now we had Twin Towers now.
Now, going way back, that season before Duncan, I was kind of covering the Spurs when they were 20 and 62.
Yeah.
And I remember the all-season thing, and they towards the end, they might make it into the lottery, and gosh, we might land a Keith Van Horn. We might land a Chauncey Billups, man, a Tony Battie.
Tony Battie.
You might, but then when all of a sudden the name is called and it's Duncan, and you're right, because then it becomes this, wow, we've got the player of the decade, of the century that might join the Spurs here, and that's amazing. And so, kind of to answer your question, that night, Kobe Dietrich, if anybody remembers, Dietrich was
former player, right?
Former player, was in house. He was getting ready to go on air because we had instant analysis. Yeah. And so he was the first person that I saw. I don't know Kobe. I just put my hand up like I need to high five somebody and hug somebody. So I high fived and hugged Kobe Dietrich.
Because see, he was here. So what we were doing then, we were like the Spurs station, except the finals were on another network.
On NBC.
So Kobe came down after all the games, and we did post game analysis. We'd have post game sound or whatever, and it was Greg Simmons and Greg Mattson were in New York, and I was back here. So I did the Kobe post-game analysis and threw a couple of sound bites with Greg Simmons. And our news director and him were kind of keeping an eye on what was going on in the city. Yeah. And it was like, y'all stay on the air. And the news director came in and told me, he said, you go out on the set with, who were the anchors back then?
It would have been.
Was it Ursula?
I believe it was Ursula and Jeff Brady. Or it might have been Steve Spriester too. I think he was out in the field.
He was out in the
yeah.
But so you go out and y'all just keep going. Just keep doing what you just keep talking and keep throwing to these live shots. Right. I remember Marilyn Morris was at the Academy Sports and Outdoors.
Wow.
And they were pumping out the T-shirts, and she was over there doing that story. We had, I think it was Jesse and Paul Venema and a couple other people who were downtown.
For that one.
Yeah, it was all hands on deck.
Paul Venema was at a parking garage right there above Commerce.
Right there above Commerce Street. And so it was like so we got done with the post game with Kobe because we had to do that. So he leaves. So I go out on the set with all the other anchors, and we just start repeating ourselves over and over and over. And people kept watching and kept watching. Yeah. And the news director and him would come in. Y'all need any water? Y'all need anything? Yeah. Can we get? Nope. Can't leave. Y'all stay right here. Don't move. If you need to go to the bathroom, make it quick.
How late did you guys go?
Till 3 a.m.
3 a.m.
Like right before it was like 2:45, 3 o'clock.
Yeah. And man, I was dying to get out there with my fellow fans, man. And one thing, when the opportunity came up, and I quickly raised my hand for it, somebody needs to go get a copy of the Express News.
Oh.
I'll go. I'll run. And it was just so nice, you know, Express News is walking distance from here. Glad to make that walk.
Yeah.
And I went out there and I got the copy, Champs, and it has that iconic picture of Duncan and Robinson holding that. Yeah. And I'll tell you another thing that happened that night that I also love was we were interviewing Avery Johnson. Greg was one of them, and Avery Johnson pleads to San Antonio as in, hey, everybody, take care of your city. You know, I'm not going to dare do an Avery Johnson but he was, you know, this is your city. Take care of your city. Have fun and everything. And just the only way Avery Johnson could do it. And I loved it because Avery Johnson, that was my player. He hit that shot in Madison
We were
Square.
talking about what the bigger shot was, the Memorial Day Miracle or the Avery shot.
Well, I think the Memorial Day Miracle set the tone for the next 20 plus years because we Spurs fans, I am glad, but we are spoiled because this franchise has been such a blessed franchise to have made the playoffs as many times as they have, to find the caliber of players in the latter years of a Parker and a Manu where they did, and win as many as they did. I think that Memorial Day Miracle kind of set off the shot went in, and now it's a dynasty. And I hate when people say, "Is it a dynasty?" It's a dynasty. It's a dynasty.
Absolutely.
If
20-year
if we had New York across our chest,
it would be a dynasty.
It would be a dynasty. But because it says San Antonio, people want to debate it.
6 trips, five rings.
Any franchise,
how many other franchises have
any
5
franchise
rings?
in any sport would take.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
And 22 straight playoff years.
Yeah. Come on.
Because even now we talk about this whole Kawhi thing, and everyone's kind of heard about it, but at the same time you're like, oh, scoreboard, 5 rings.
5 rings,
5 rings, 6 finals appearances.
Toronto was going through for the first time getting there. That was like 20 years ago we were doing that. So we're all
I think the Avery shot was big because also remember earlier in the season, Damon Stoudemire had called and said they wouldn't win a Spurs, they wouldn't win a championship with Avery at the helm, and so his being in question and stuff like that. But I mean, '99 was such a fun time because it started off what became a tradition to win, and I loved the Spurs winning more championships because that answered any skeptic questions they had about did they win one because of a shortened season.
I think it answered Phil Jackson's question whether or not there should be an asterisk about the Spurs.
I loved beating the Lakers. So there you go.
I
I loved beating the Lakers.
All right, yes, that's a conversation for a different day, the Spurs-Lakers rivalry. All right, Mario, thank you very much for being with us, man.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, really appreciate you being on Run It Back.
We can sit here and talk about that forever, couldn't we?
Absolutely. All right. So we're going to take another break here and maybe come back with our Bryles talk. I don't know. Maybe not. It's all right. Andrew's giving me a look like we need to get out of here. Okay, maybe not. Okay. All right, right, guys, welcome to Run It Back. We've been talking about this last couple of segments. We're going to get into it real quick. David, Art Briles is back coaching football in the state of Texas at Mount Vernon High School. What were your thoughts? There's been a lot of national outrage about this.
My first reaction was, what?
Yeah.
Somebody hired him
to
coach in Texas. And then when you read a little about it and you hear some of the things that apparently the superintendent up there at Mount Vernon did what he considers his due diligence. Mm-hmm. He talked to a lot of people. He talked to people at Baylor. He talked to some other people. He did not, according to some reports, talk to any of the victims. Mm-hmm. He didn't get into any of that, but he just found out about Art Briles' background and wanted to know what kind of person he'd be, and they signed him to a 2-year contract. Mm-hmm. I will tell you this: he's in a small town. Mm-hmm. One slip up, everybody in town's going to know it. Mm-hmm. And this is the town's decision. I mean, they can run him out on a rail if they want to, because there's it's a small town, and it's up to the players, it's up to the parents, it's up to the administration there. So one slip, and I'm sure he's out the door.
Yeah, I'm sure they had discussions about what the impact would be and what the national sort of message would be about this. I figured that this was going to happen sooner or later because football is king in the state of Texas, and Art Briles has proven when he was at Stephenville, at Houston, at Baylor, that he can coach and he can put together good football teams. But yeah, for them to really not kind of talk to any of the not talk to the sexual assault victims, I think was a little bit short-sighted on their part. I think that should have been something they should have vetted, even though I think they wanted to sort of do this no matter what. It seems like they're excited about it. But like you said, one slip up, something happens, there's rumors of this and that, then I think, they're definitely in some deep trouble there with the district.
If you've ever lived in a small town, everybody knows everybody. Yeah. Not going to take long. Yeah. So, we'll have to see what happens. But like you said, high school football in the state of Texas, I mean, I
figured it was going to happen.
There are high school coaches in the state of Texas that are bigger time than college football coaches. Yeah. So. Yeah. Not surprising that he got a job, but we'll have to see how it works out.
Yeah, so that'll be interesting to see. Any final thoughts on that? I mean,
not on that, no. Yeah. But one final thought is Warriors in 5.
Oh yeah, we didn't even talk about that. I'm going to say Warriors in 6. Yeah, Warriors in 6. I think even if KD plays or not, but yeah.
Defensive Warriors is a whole lot better than the defense of the Milwaukee Bucks.
Oh, interesting. All right. We shall see what happens there. The NBA Finals, if we, this podcast, I'm not sure when we're going to put this online, hopefully within the next couple of days, but that is going to be all on KSAT 12.
Andrew said he's going to have it online in like the next 20 minutes.
What?
That's what he said.
That's impressive, man. I like that.
Quick
turnaround from Andrew. All right, David, thanks very much for being with us. Run It Back. We appreciate you guys subscribing, listening, checking us out on KSAT.com and also on all the podcast platforms. Again, rate us, subscribe. We definitely appreciate that. Follow us on social media, Run It Back on Instagram. That's right. Yeah. We're also, both of us are on Twitter. This
is half the show right here, just talking about where we are.
All right, guys. Yeah. On that note, this has gone pretty long. On that note, we will let you guys go. Thank you very much for being with us.